Signed by, oh, very good. Let's see. Let's give that one. Very good, Randy. You just get a gold star. All you do is have the agreements.
They always picking up.
Okay,
Let me see.
okay, welcome to Tuesday, June 28th, regular council meeting. Will you have roll call, please?
What the heck, man?
If your costume like me, especially
Dang it.
in the back,
Sorry, guys.
Councilmember Ramirez,
Here.
Councilmember Cardenas. Here. Councilmember Costa Junior,
Here.
Councilmember Robles,
Present.
Mayor Jillian.
Here, we have a quorum. Will you please rise with me for a moment of silence and then the pledge of allegiance? A few items on the moment of silence. There's a recent local resident, Victoria Reyes, who passed a couple days ago. A moment of silence for her and for those 50 individuals in Texas who perished in that trailer. Terrible. And for those in the war in Ukraine and the deaths that country is experiencing, and for all those who are experiencing the negative impacts of our environment today. So, moment of silence for those. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the agenda review. Is there a council member or staff who wishes to change the order of the agenda as presented?
No.
No, we're good. Next item is community participation. I have at this point two individuals that wish to speak and who are on an item that's not on the agenda. Beverly Taylor, Miss Beverly Taylor. Good to see you again.
Hello, it's good to be here and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Beverly Taylor, and I've been receiving your request that your body or individual members would oppose Assembly Bill 2223. And just would like to say good evening to the mayor and also to the city council members. AB 223 would add a new code section 123467 to the Health and Safety Code, which reads, notwithstanding any other law, a person shall not be subject to a civil or criminal liability or penalty, or otherwise deprived of their rights under this article based on their actions or omissions with respect to their pregnancy or actual, potential, or alleged pregnancy outcome, including miscarriage, stillbirth, or abortion, or perinatal death due to causes that occurred in utero. This bill also deletes the requirement of the coroner to investigate and inquire into circumstances of all deaths related to known or suspected self-induced or criminal abortion. Strong opposition has been made against the use of the language perinatal death, as it includes death of infants up to 28 days after birth, with no inquiry related to an infant's death if this bill passes. Amendments made have failed to correct the threat that this bill poses to children born in California, and it undermines existing laws that value and protect life. The legal analysis by the Chief Counsel for the Committee on the Judiciary addressed some of these concerns early on, stating the perinatal death language included in the original bill could lead to an unintended and undesirable conclusion that the bill could be interpreted to immunize a pregnant person from all criminal penalties for all pregnancy outcomes, including the death of a newborn for any reason during the perinatal period after birth, including a cause of death which is not attributed to pregnancy complications. And that's the end of his analysis. So without an amendment to delete the perinatal language altogether, which doesn't appear to be the direction, this current bill with this language could effectively legalize infanticide for up to 28 days after the baby is born, the perinatal period, for any reason. So I would urge that you as a body would oppose this bill. We don't need it. The law is clear in California that ending or losing pregnancy is not a crime. The law currently in California does protect pregnant individuals. And I'm asking that we as a people, as a Santa Barbara County, cities in Santa Barbara County would protect the child. The bill does go before the state senate tomorrow, and it goes before the committee for health. It's already passed the assembly, and so now it's in the senate. And so I don't know what as a body you can do, but I would ask that maybe there's something you can look into, and the weight that cities carry, and the mayors of cities and city council members carry a lot of weight in our state. And again, it's not against abortion, or because again, there's a protection there. My main focus is on that perinatal that's in this bill that isn't currently really defined clearly, but even the legal analyst for the judiciary made that. And so thank you for your time. And again, it's Assembly Bill 2223. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
Next, individual requested to speak, Mr. Lupe Alvarez.
Council, good evening, Lupe Alvarez. At the budget hearing that you had here a couple of weeks ago, I submitted a letter in regards to the missing part of the levee. I know that you are all aware of it. The missing approximately 1.5 miles to protect the sewer plant, the Leroy Park, the new remodeled beautiful Leroy Park, and of course the Apostolic Church, Lower Pioneer, and a few houses down there. But I've spoken with Tom Brandenberry. There is grant monies available. I've spoken with Steve Lavino, our new supervisor for the 5th district here that we're in now, and also with Congressman Salud Carvajal. They're all in support. I think it just needs to be agendized and give some direction. Hopefully we can tap into some of those grant monies that are still available. And I think the investment will maybe even encourage maybe a little bit more of that trail to the beach, since it does move it forward. So hopefully, and I know your agendas have been long, but hopefully in the next meeting or two that can come forward, and it's something that is needed, and will protect the Boys and Girls Club as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? I don't have any slips, so our next item is the consent calendar. Is there a council person that wishes to pull an item for further discussion? Or move to approve the consent calendar? Going to my left. Okay, Mr. Robles. Good. Chief.
So, well, I'm going to approve the remainder or the whole consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, Mr. Wings. Wings. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. Consent calendar approved. We'll go to item number 7, city administrator's report, information not only. Mr. Bodum.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and public. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm just going to give some updates regarding public works and just some projects, because I think they just need to be heard. The West Main Street Waterline Replacement Project is currently underway on West Main Street from Guadalupe Street to Pioneer Street. This is the replacement of almost 1,000 feet of 4-inch pipeline with 12-inch pipe. Project is scheduled to be completed July 15th. This project is approximately $400,000, not general fund money, of course. 2022 pavement rehabilitation project is currently in design. Engineer estimates for the project is 1.4 million. Also, a structural assessment of the city hall has been completed. A building committee meeting is scheduled for July 14th to discuss results and options. On July 1, the city's transit system will change to 2 fixed routes instead of 1 fixed route and 1 on-demand shuttle. Upgrades have been made to several bus stops, including shelters, signs, and lighting. If you happen to, there's one, I think, on what, 11th or 10th that you can go see right now. It looks really nice. On June 23rd, the city received a letter of intent from 3CE, the New Energy, of up to $250,000 for the procurement of an electric bus. So we received that. All we have to do is plug that into the other revenues for them to purchase a bus. The city needs to issue a PO or request an extension within 30 days of that date to secure these funds. On June 27th, the city finalized the details of CAL FIRE grant, which is a $170,000 grant for the preparation of an urban tree plan and inventory existing tree. The city has until March 30th, 2026 to expend these funds. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, any questions? Council? No hands raised out there, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item, Director of Public Safety Report Information only, Mr. Dash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. On a brief report, I just attended the Airfest community meeting at the Santa Maria Airport. That will be occurring in September, and they are looking to make sure that Guadalupe is going to be represented. They'd like to have some dignitaries from Guadalupe to appear at that event. Our recent rash of cases of vandalism, the police department has identified all of our vandals and have arrested some. And with the help of Public Works, they're giving me some of the projects that some of these vandals can paint over or do. We've already spoken to some of the parents, and we're just kind of working things through right now. Also, over this weekend, I've been in discussion with 2 major cities for a possible fire engine. I met with one of our fire captains, gave me specific specifications of what the needs and wants are. Most of these large agencies, they rotate vehicles out. And so we're just kind of trying to work through how this is going to happen. They donate to other cities, and so I'm trying to get on their list. 4th of July, the department has sent out flyers to the community about enforcement. And we've also just procured a aerial drone that we'll use for the 4th of July and also for the fire department. This gives us eyes in the sky to be able to do better enforcement. On the graffiti task force that was asked about by one of our council persons I've met with, I spoke with our Guadalupe Business Association. We want to make this a community-driven type of enforcement and not just strictly from the police department. So we're working things out. Mr. Garrett Matsuda, he has worked with us to update our complaint form. It is now online, and you can do it via online to be able to submit any kind of complaint. So we're working to make sure that we have the program set, and then we'll put together the community meeting so we can hopefully get this where it's more citizen driven and be able to report. And we'll be working with the police department and fire department to address graffiti. And last but not least is on the CCW permits. The California Attorney General just came out with their directive at the Supreme Court, upheld the Second Amendment as far as carrying a concealed weapon. We just need to get more clarification on what the state process would be. Currently, since now each jurisdiction will have the responsibility to issue CCW permits. At this time, we only have 2 citizens that are requesting, but we want to make sure that everything is going to be legal. So our city attorneys also sent me that determination from our state attorney general's office. And if we have any questions, we'll definitely be working with our city attorney's office on that. And that's my report.
Any questions from the council?
Seeing none, thank you, chief. Item 9 is mayor's report. There's a written information on the full slew of items, and please refer to that. I won't go into detail. Sure.
Just on that one,
Okay.
the Jack O'Connell ribbon cutting has already been done. The Jack.
Right, okay,
Oh,
So, yeah,
okay.
number 14,
Right.
that was,
okay. By the way, you know, you had ice cream?
yeah.
Okay.
you- but right.
Well, I went and got a second load of ice cream at Muscatani's, and they donated ice cream to this thing, so that's pretty cool. So thank you for handling that. Next item is item 10, public hearing to consider Trust Pro addition and solar project. Mr. Rappel, I think you're handling that, Todd? Or is Larry out there? somewhere?
Actually, Bill Scott's supposed to be here too, and I talked to him today. He's gonna be stepping in to step up for Larry. So he's gonna provide the verbal presentation.
Oh, okay, there. you
Oh,
go.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I guess this guy is gonna. do it.
I know.
He is.
I'm just a press program.
Oh, you're okay, all right. Just.
Yeah, Bill's got-
So I don't know,
Bill's supposed to be here.
whatever you'd like to pass, just a brief history, we had some computerized saws that we got way back 2003, 2005. Then 2008, the economic crash happened, so by the time we rolled out of that, we had that on the budget to replace some saws. And then COVID hit, and then supply chain issues hit. Turned out the only saw we could find was from Australia. It had been manufactured there, and I don't want to keep going on, but anyway, we were able to get it here, but none of the installers were able to come because of COVID. They were locked. If they left their country, they couldn't get back home. So anyway, it was an ordeal, and so then when the saw equipment got here, it didn't fit in the building, so we did a couple of additions. Because we were close to get in here too as well, and so we jumped the gun a little bit. Sorry, but anyway, so we have we wanted to put solar on the building too. And so now Larry said, yeah, let's catch up on the additions as well. And so that's kind of a synopsis of how that was all put together. Any other questions? I'll be quiet and answer your question.
I have a question for
I'm sorry, my name's
Phil.
Aaron.
Bill's gonna step in since Bill's not here. for
Okay.
whatever reason.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to supplement the applicant's statements for the staff report.
Okay, then what we need to do then is open it up to public hearing.
Or you can wait till I'm done and then do it.
Okay. I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, it won't take long. It's pretty simple. This is really close to even having to be before the council. It's essentially a minor, it would have been a minor design review, except that there was the size of there was an unpermitted addition that was discovered in the process of the solar project. So it was very close. The staff is perfectly fine. The applicants cooperated, staff perfectly fine, recommending approval of this. And if there's any questions, I can give it a go.
Okay, now I'll open it up to public. It's 6:19. Now it's open for public comment. It's public hearing. Any request to speak out there in the support or, opposition to this? So at 6:20, close the public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-55? Approving 2022-.
I'll make a motion
Okay, okay.
to approve 2022-095 DR.
So there's a motion and a second. Roll call, please. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Aye.
Councilmember Cardenas. Aye. Councilmember Acosta Junior.
Aye.
Councilmember Robles.
Aye.
Mayor Gillian.
Aye, all ayes.
Excuse me one second, just a second.
That's
Thank you.
Good to go. Any further comments? No?
No, just thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for your company. Okay, next item 11, Pasadena Landscaping and Lighting District, this fiscal year 2022-23 public hearing. Ms. Sweeney, Public Works.
One second, I need to recuse.
Yeah. Yeah, he's.
Let me know.
Okay.
Bye. That's great.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an annual exercise for us to hold this public hearing for the Pasadena Landscape and Lighting District. This district was formed back in 2017, and it's to pay for the amenities in Pasadena, including the lighting and landscaping. And there is an engineering report in your packet that includes the details on how the funds were developed. And at build out, this district will incorporate, it's actually close to 799 single family home sites, 21 acres of non-residential development, 14 acres school site, and also some various public areas, easements and right of ways. The annual assessments that you see in your agenda package will fund the special benefit costs and expenses that'll be necessary to service and maintain the local parks, landscaping, and lighting improvements associated with the development of these properties for 2022 and 2023. At the June 14th council meeting, you adopted a resolution with intent of preliminary approval of the engineer's report, and then set today as the public hearing date. Tonight, staff recommends that you open up a public hearing to provide an opportunity for public testimony and written protests. And at the end of the public testimony, close the public hearing and perhaps adopt the resolution that approves the engineer's report and orders the levy and collection of assessments on the county tax roll for this upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you, Shannon. At 6:22, open up the public hearing. Is there any individual who wants to speak in opposition or support of this particular item? So it's 6:22.5, close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve this item?
My motion to approve resolution 2022-56.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Let's do roll call, so we stay on the same thing. Thank you.
Councilmember Ramirez, yes. Councilmember Cardenas,
Aye.
Councilmember Costa Junior,
Aye.
Councilmember Robles,
Aye.
Mayor Julian.
Aye. It passes. Resolution passes. Next item is item 12, Guadalupe Benefit Assessment District 2021, 22, 23, public hearing. Shannon.
Wait, Mr. Mayor, don't you?
Yeah. I don't, how far does that go? Does it go?
I'm sorry. Are you a member of, who lives in the district?
I live in the district.
Okay, so
So how
you'll have,
far does that go does it go to Caesar Chavez?
I'm sorry, you were asking a question about
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
I believe it does because it goes Riverview and 254 parcels points. Of it.
Well, there'd be three of us.
No.
No, you're not,
That's right.
you're the.
Yes,
Okay, we have to recuse
yes,
ourselves.
you have to recuse yourself and leave the room because you live in the district.
Right.
Councilmember Cardenas does not because she does not own property in the.
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I get it. Okay. All right, item number 10, Guadalupe Benefit Assess, 12, sorry, I don't know where I got 10 from. Benefit Assessment Districts.
Tim and remaining council. This is the second of 3 benefit districts that we have. And it's recommended that a public hearing be conducted. We're responsible for levying assessments based on prior year costs and estimated future costs relating in landscaping inside the Point
Southlands and Riverview subdivisions in the benefit assessment district number 1. These benefit districts were established to cover the annual costs for fiscal year 22-23. And in order to do so, we need a public hearing. So
I ran
the engineering report for this,
I did not change the assessments for Point Saldoons and Riverview. So these per parcel assessments are the same as they were from last year.
and I have to answer the question.
Does he have any speaker slips over there?
No,
I open up to public hearing.
no, John. No.
Oh, no, all right, it's weird being in this section here. Okay, so we will open it up, the public hearing at 6:25. Anyone have anything they would like to say for Riverview / Point South Marshall? Assessment District? All right, we'll go ahead and close it back at 6:26. And we'll send it back to the council.
I will motion to approve the resolution 2022-57.
All second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I guess we can let them back in. No, except for you. You got elected mayor.
Okay. Are we on
13.
13?
No recusal needed there.
Okay, next item 13, Guadalupe Lighting District, public hearing. Shannon,
Yes, Mr. Mayor, welcome back and council.
thank you.
Shannon, before you go, I think your mic is off.
That's honest, speaking right directly into it. Just speak right into it.
All right.
You're right.
I'll give this a try.
It's
Not how much-
just not working. Keep trying to do another one, Morse code.
Yeah,
Yes.
Is there another one?
Yeah.
there's another one. Here. Yes. Here you go.
All right, let's give this a try. Okay, this is the third of 3 benefit districts. This one is the Guadalupe Lighting District. This one has existed for a long time. It's also recommended city council conduct a public hearing, providing the opportunity to speak for or against the assessment for the Guadalupe Lighting District. This is for the annual cost of street lighting, including the clock, the Amtrak station, and the city parking lot. I prepared an estimate of the annual cost, and this district also receives a central property tax. So I subtract that property tax out of the total cost and then assess from there. The amount that is being charged per property has not changed from last year. So these numbers are the same as they were last year. And I'm open to questions.
Any questions from the council? All right, open it up to the public. Is there any individual that would like to speak on this item? Please,
Oh, yeah, the city park,
can you,
city parking, oh, you want over there?
No,
yeah, we need to hear your lovely voice.
I was in TV land.
Thank you. I just had a question because you mentioned this city parking lot. I wondered if you meant this, the Veterans Memorial Plaza, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Thank you very
it would
much.
be the Veterans Memorial Plaza.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Okay. We have any other individual which should speak in support or opposition to this? And that, we opened it up, I opened it up at 6:28 and we'll close it at 6:29. What's the wishes of the council?
I'll motion to approve resolution 2022-58.
Is there-
second that.
There's a second, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ramirez,
Aye.
Councilmember Cardenas,
Aye.
Councilmember Costa Junior,
Aye.
Councilmember Douglas,
Aye.
Mayor Gilligan.
All right. All right, thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank you, Sean. All right, regular business, item 14, fiscal year 2022-23 proposed budget. Lorena's up there, finance director, you're on.
Good evening, council members and audience. I have also provided a color-coded sheet that's in the back and have passed it out. It'll be posted on the website, and it summarizes the changes that were discussed in our budget workshop that was hosted on June 15th. So to begin, the background, so city council, city staff participated in the goal setting session on May 31st. One of the goals of the city council is to have a balanced budget for the fiscal year 22-23 and the priority to build up reserves. In an effort to better match the upcoming budget with the priorities, we hosted a workshop on the 15th. We prepared a preliminary draft of the budget that was presented during the workshop. The draft represented an excess of expenditures over revenues of about $985,000. During the workshop, there were some recommendations and options and ideas that were presented to council to reduce, eliminate, or defer expenditures. To begin with the general fund, as a summary, the proposed budget, which is attached to the staff report, includes revenues totaling $6,923,113 and expenditures of $6,855,696. The expenditures are broken down in the graphs below. The preliminary budget presented during the workshop included revenues of $6.7 million and expenditures of $7.7 million approximately. The proposed budget represents an increase to revenue of $161,300 and a decrease to expenditures of $891,200 as compared to the draft that was presented during the workshop. In the graphic on page 2 of the staff report, on the table, you will see the differences between the different departments. So we were able to reduce the total overall budget for the general fund from $7,746,896 to the $6.8 million that is shown. So that is a reduction of $891,000 from the draft that was presented during the workshop. Currently, the proposed budget represents a balanced budget, which means that the revenues are enough to cover the proposed expenditures. The proposed budget is at a break-even state. The difference between the revenues and expenditures for this proposed draft is $67,000 approximately, meaning that the revenues are just slightly over. That is why the break-even state. The budgeted expenditures for this proposed draft will need to be further reduced if City Council would like to continue to build additional reserves. Details on the changes to the revenue and departmental expenditures for this draft as compared to the draft presented during the workshop are explained below. For the revenue, originally transfers to the general fund from other funds were estimated at $1,011,272. However, after making the recommended changes after the workshop to all the different departments' budgets and other funds' budget, the cost allocation study was updated to calculate an updated transfer into the general fund, which then reduced to $4,899. The transfer from ARPA was updated to include the funding of the Parks and Rec manager and the maintenance lead position of $166,200. Overall, this draft budget includes revenues for the general fund of $6,923,000. This represents a decrease of 2% compared to the prior year budget. For the general fund expenditures, the council department showed no change from the draft that was presented during the workshop. And the budget for this department is still at $12,680 and still assumes the stipend of $150 a month for every elected member. For the administration department, The budget for this proposed draft is $507,000, which represents a $31,700 decrease from the draft that was presented during the workshop. The following changes were made to the calculation of the cost of personnel services for this department compared to the draft that was presented to the workshop. The only change was the elimination of the 20% increase to the city administrator's salary, and this makes up the total $31,700 difference between the draft from the workshop and the draft now. The following remains the same from the workshop till now, and this includes the unfilled HR position at a predecessor's hourly rate and the assumption of a 3% COLA for unrepresented employees, and election costs still to be expected at about $10,000. For the attorney department, the draft is still the same from what was presented during the workshop at $110,000. For the finance department, the budget for this draft is $578,583, and this represents $16,000 decrease from the draft that was presented to the workshop. And it's made up of the elimination of the bilingual pay for all unrepresented employees, which is about $3,250. The elimination of anniversary step increases in hourly rates for all employees, and this reduced the budget for this department of $6,350. And the elimination of the temporary position during the Tyler accounting software implementation, which helped reduce the budget to $6,500. The remaining remains the same between the draft during the workshop and the draft now, and this includes 3% COLA for unrepresented employees and professional services expenses for the new accounting software, merchant fees, insurance fees, and HCL fees for revenue projection. For the non-departmental department, this proposed draft includes $588,507, and this represents a $190,000 decrease from the budget presented during the workshop, which includes $40,000 elimination for the rubberization of the O'Connell Park and $150,000 elimination for improvements at the Washington Park. The remaining items, the big ticketed items, remain the same from the preliminary budget that was presented during the workshop, and these include operating supplies that include Surface Pros funded by ARPA, the IT cost for monthly service by iTech Solutions, and the monthly cost to maintain the website, and website and chamber equipment improvements funded by ARPA, professional services for audit fees, and Tyler accounting software annual fees of about $20,000. Assumption that the animal service contract will remain at an increased cost of $22,700. PPE costs funded by ARPA, accounting software as a capital project, the general plan update, the maintenance of efforts for streets, and also the transfer to help the library pay rent in the amount of $5,000. For the building maintenance department, this proposed draft is at $328,398, and this is about $50,000 decrease from the budget presented during the workshop. And this decrease is composed of the allocation of 10% of the cost for one of the maintenance workers out of this department and to the transit fund, which reduced the budget by $8,100. And also the elimination of the anniversary step increases for all employees, which reduced the budget for this department $1,200. And the elimination of the turf replacement for city facilities that reduced the budget $40,000. The remaining line items stayed the same from the budget presented during the workshop, and these include the new maintenance lead position to be approved and filled, hired as step A, which is to be funded by ARPA. Utilities proposed at $50,000. Communication expenses for fiber optic internet and phones, membership dues to account for stormwater permits and other health permits, operating expense for finance and public works conference upgrades funded by ARPA, Professional services include the following. $46,000 and $30,000 approximately for auditorium upgrades and vegetation maintenance respectively funded by ARPA. $1,000 to resurface the auditorium floor and $57,000 approximately recurring costs for maintenance. For the police department, the proposed budget included in this staff report is at $2,848,700. And this represents a decrease of $370,000 from the budget that was presented during the workshop. And this decrease is composed of the following. Deferment of 2 unfilled officer positions, which reduce the budget by $210,800. The deferment of the emergency preparedness coordinator, reduce the budget by $109,000. The elimination of step increases for all employees, reduced the budget by $35,600. Bilingual pay for unrepresented employees, reduce the budget by $3,200. Intern position for the police department, reduce the budget by $11,000 approximately. And then the following items remain the same from the draft presented during the workshop. And this includes the assumption of sergeant to lieutenant position, potential COLAs, as union negotiations are underway. Overtime estimated based on current fiscal year trends. Increase for fuel costs along with other supplies and services costs. And a generator in the amount of $50,000 allocated and funded by ARPA. For the fire department, the proposed draft included in the staff report shows a budget of $1,262,200, and this represents a decrease from the budget presented during the workshop of $166,700, which is comprised of the elimination of the battalion chief position, which reduced the budget $148,000. Anniversary step increases reduced the budget by $8,000 and an intern by $11,000. The remaining items remain the same. Potential COLA as union negotiations are underway. Overtime estimated based on recent union negotiation terms, and increase for fuel costs along with other supplies and services costs. For the Parks and Rec department, the proposed draft budget is at $366,272, and this represents a decrease of $23,000 approximately from the budget presented during the workshop, which is comprised of the reallocation of 10% of the cost for one of the maintenance workers to the transit fund, which reduced the budget by $8,100, and the elimination of SIP increases for all employees, reduced the budget by $3,300. In addition, elimination of locks of $2,400 and the elimination of a Central Park booster pump of $10,000. The remaining items remain the same for this department from the budget presented during the workshop, and they include the new maintenance lead position to be approved and filled hired at a step A funded by ARPA, the 3% COLA for unrepresented employees, utilities and communication, expense proposed at $85,000 and $4,000, which includes new costs for Leeward Park. Operating expense includes rec programs funded by ARPA. It includes table storage concession stand of about $30,000. Increase in fuel costs, professional services at $40,000 approximately for recurring cost of maintenance. Building and permit department. This budget is at $253,060 and represents a decrease from the budget presented during the workshop of about $43,000, and this includes the deferment or elimination of the associate planner position. The remaining items remain the same from the workshop, and they include the temporary assignment for scanning funded by ARPA and annual fees for the new planning software of about $10,000. The cannabis department is at 0 and did not change from the budget presented during the workshop. In conclusion, for the general fund, overall estimated expenditures for the general fund per this proposed budget total $6,855,700 and represents approximately $891,000 less than the draft that was presented during the workshop. As revenues are expected to exceed expenditures by only $67,000, the estimated fund balance at the end of the year is expected to be in the black, approximately $890,000 for the end of this fiscal year. With the changes made after the workshop, which are reflected in this proposed budget presented tonight, the city has a balanced budget. Having a balanced budget was one of the main goals of the city council. Moving on to other funds, I listed some changes that occurred after the meeting as well. For example, the step increases affect other funds as well, not just the general fund. For example, for the Measure A department, there were changes that included the step increases, which had an effect of reducing its budget by $2,800, and the transfer to the general fund as well decreased $4,600. The remaining items stayed the same for this fund. New engineering technician position to be filled at step B. COLA for unrepresented employees, increased public works director salary at hourly rate, $45,000 for utility vehicle, $13,000 equipment for tree survey, increase for fuel costs, $5,000 to remove trees from native garden, $105,000 for an urban forest plan, and then transfer for capital improvements estimated at $610,000 to fund street rehabilitation, sidewalk repairs, and storm drain improvements. The gas tax, it did not change very significantly, only about $50,000 from the proposed draft during the workshop. LTF remained the same from what was presented during the workshop, and it only includes transfer for capital improvements related to sidewalk repairs. Same with the SB1 RNRA fund and the ASIC pedestrian fund. In regards to enterprise funds, the water operating fund did see a change to its budget, represents an increase of $60,000 approximately, and it's comprised by an elimination of step increases, but then also an update to the transfer to the general fund, which increased $3,100, and then an increase of $60,000 for the turf replacement costs. The water capital fund are budgeted at $865,000 and include the following capital projects. A portion of the financial accounting software, elevated tank repairs, advanced metering infrastructure, SCADA improvements, West Main water line, and the Bonita tank demolition. For the wastewater operating fund, the proposed budget represents an increase from what was presented during the workshop of about $40,000, and is made up mostly by the update to the transfer to the general fund and an increase for the grid system replacement costs. The remaining remains the same from the budget that was presented during the workshop, and these include the following: the new engineering technician position, the COLA for unrepresented employees, potential increase in the public works director hourly rate, increase for utility and fuel costs, a $48,000 aerator, $70,000 tractor, $100,000 climate action plan, $80,000 wastewater master plan, and $50,000 annual jetting costs. A $20,000 sewer atlas update. For the wastewater capital fund, these include portion of the financial accounting software, the effluent irrigation pump station rehabilitation, the Highway 1 lift station, and the AIPS vaults. In regards to transit, this fund had an update which increased its budget by about, should reflect the following: the allocation of the 10% of the public works director, 20% of the maintenance costs for James, for the maintenance work for James Bataya was added to this department and was reallocated from the general fund. The infrastructure improvements of $2,194,000 were updated to include EV bus and charging and Amtrak station design. For the miscellaneous special funds, the proposed budget for the library changed from the draft presented during the workshop. The rent cost is reduced to $11,000, as $4,000 was donated by the Friends of the Library.
The Capital Facilities Fund Program and project for council's approval as to the use of funds includes $70,000 for public safety equipment, which includes fire turnouts, XCBA breather, fire hoses, exhaust captures, and crime prevention cameras. It also includes $280,000 capital improvements, which includes the American Legion wood repair, police electrical upgrade, public facilities master plan, and repairs to the auditorium stage and chambers. For the lighting and landscape districts, the budgeted expenditures were changed just slightly for the update to the transfers to the general fund, varying material. The capital improvements projects total $20,053,162, and they're detailed out in attachment 3. The ARPA allocation was changed to reflect the funding of the Parks and Rec manager and the maintenance lead worker. It is estimated that by the end of June 2022, the city would have spent about $330,000 of the ARPA funds. And this proposed budget includes the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $1,388,000, of which $658,613 is to fund general fund expenditures. And it's detailed out in attachment 5. That concludes the end of my report, and I'm open to further questions.
In detail. Okay. Comments?
Good job, staff, for figuring things out a little bit here. Is it us first or does it?
No, this is, I don't think it's a public, is it closed then?
It's not
No,
public.
no, it's not public.
No, it's not.
But what, it's open to public to comment on it.
I have a question regarding the animal service contract.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, it's increased a lot. I know countywide. Have we looked at any other services that?
Yeah, the chief looked at it. Oops, I'm sorry. That'll be coming to the next council meeting, and the chief had looked at it before, and doing it in-house and to mobilize equipment, what would be way too expensive. Santa Maria is looking into, they're gonna sign into the 5-year contract, but there's a 60-day out. So they're taking some time to analyze them doing it themselves. And so I'm working with them to see if the city could, work in partnership. So my recommendation at the next meeting will be to approve it, to lock it in. And then with the idea, if we find it, we can do it with less expensive, we can always out on it in 60 days. So for now, I'm looking forward with the recommendation for the council to approve a 5-year contract. We're at 61,900 now. The next fiscal year will be about 64,000. So it increases, the first year is going to be about 4.5%. And then each subsequent year thereafter will be about 6.5% until 4 years out after that. Now, it doesn't hit us as hard from a huge dollar standpoint compared to other larger cities because they base it on population. But entertaining the idea of doing it in-house, because by city code, we have to do this. We have to have that service. We probably won't be able to do it any cheaper because we'd have to build a pound. We'd have to teach the officers how to euthanize. So the best idea is probably to look to work with Santa Maria. I think Lone Folk is going to be doing it as well in-house potentially. So they're studying that right now. So for now, I think going with the county is our best option.
So I know that specifically itself has been a hot topic for the county and the board of supervisors.
Yes.
And some of the pushback, I know it actually came from our own representative there too, saying that the 5-year might be too much for people to agree upon. So they're expecting at the board of supervisors level that the cities actually end up rejecting it because it's 5 years is a long time to be locked into something. So
Yeah, I mean, they did a study, fully loaded to look at reimbursable costs, and we as city agencies, all city managers, sent a letter to the county back in October of 21, indicating that we disagree with the report. In fact, we didn't even see the data. With the rejection letters, the county saw those, but did not set up a meeting with the various agencies to go over the information, but they have passed it anyway.
I think you're right. The cheapest option probably is the county, but I don't think that we need to agree for a 5-year term. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the agreement's set up, so but it does allow for an out if we find out that we can do it, with less expensive. So I don't know. It's in the attorney's hands right now.
Haven't looked at it.
He hasn't looked at it yet. I sent it over to him. Staff report's done, everything.
Thought I would want to be a document.
Yeah. So,
Any questions?
I mean, the budget will be for that item will be about 4.5% higher than last fiscal year. So from 61, I think 9 to 64.3. For this next fiscal year.
I'll have more to say in the next council meeting.
Oh.
I had a question regarding in its overall projections, most of and that's, you looked at the estimate for this fiscal year. And do we see anything coming in and for June, your information was based on, you had from May, is there any estimate in terms of what may be out there that we don't see?
So my estimates for the estimates that I projected out in this budget for this year that we're in, that'll drive the next year, we're through trends through April 2022. And then also with the
21. I mean, 22, sorry.
Yeah. But they do include communication, for example, with HDL regarding our remaining property taxes, which is, kind of the bigger ticket items, for sales tax as well. So I feel pretty confident that the estimates that I provided are a pretty good reflection of what we'll see here by the end of June of this year.
And I think you'll see on your sheet on your financial report, 3 of 7 under the consent agenda, you'll see the budget and then the actual amount. So there's some room for more revenue to come in.
And we do usually receive revenue
Yeah.
all the way through September. That still affects the year that we're in now.
Yeah.
So a lot of that happens to be accrued back in this year that we're in now.
So one of the other things that I saw on here and I think we heard it over and over again as we were going through each one of the line items, was talking about the accounting software, the financial accounting software. I think that it's still important for us to be able to have that temporary position to be able to help support finance, that 6,500. Especially because it's one time, but it's gonna not only allow us to be able to have a way better online system for residents to be able to pay for their bills, apply for building permits. It's just going to be a very efficient way of being able to conduct business in the future, and also internally in-house to be able to have more accurate numbers for these kinds of things that we ask staff for. So I would be in favor of putting that back into the budget at 6,500 to be able to help out with that implementation, to get it up and running, because I know I use the online system to try to pay my utilities. I abandoned that after 2 months of home ownership, and now just do everything by a check, and I didn't think I needed to reorder checks in my life. And I did, so.
And I had a question regarding Fund 76, and I brought this up at a meeting that we had. And that's one way back on attachment 4. And that's the people self-help housing impact. And one of the items that we're looking at the termite, and I think, Shannon, you got an estimate on termite repair for the American Legion at 70,000. And these funds are for public use, public safety use, public support, public facility support, and public safety. Did we get an actual bid on this, or was it? We didn't receive a bid. I know it's going to be expensive the way to do that, but it would seem to me that if we were hurting in another area, that we can actually move some of that back across to public safety. And it's just a thought, just to see if there's any wiggle room that we can't pick up everything that is requested, but to actually see if we can move stuff around. Not stuff, but money around.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, that is not an urgent repair. I
Exactly.
just followed the fumigation that we did. And it's one of those that after fumigation, it's good to repair the wood so that the next time it gets inspected, you don't assume
Mhm.
that, that is new damage. Which is why it was put in there in the first
Okay.
place. However,
Placeholder,
it's not that the building is falling down, so it isn't vital.
Right. So just bringing that up in the sense that can we use that, can we shuffle that around to another component department that we might have cut? And I know the cost of living of the,
Yeah, oh, the step increase?
step increase.
Yeah, it's under review, so I mean, it's, you're cutting it, but there is some review that has to be had by Che to, see if that's even, something we can do. So, we're looking into that. We don't get an answer yet.
Bill's looking at me like, what? Okay,
And it's under review.
okay, it's under review.
The other thing is that the $6,500 Tyler, as you can see, there's a gap of 67,000, which would increase the reserve slightly. But if you pulled that 65 from that gap of 67, you're still at, you're still in a positive net position. Small,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
We have any emergency, that's
right?
only $60,000.
One of the things that we talked about, and Lorena brought it up before, and we've talked about that, it's been in the report that we were anticipating a lot of homes being built, and that's basically a 47% or so reduction in what revenue that we thought we'd be getting. And out of curiosity, I started looking at other cities, the revenue that they got in their 22-23 budget. For instance, Santa Maria has a budget of $258 million.
Take some of that this way.
12, almost 13 million goes to police, 14 million goes to fire. Goleta, Santa Maria has a population of 107,000. Goleta has a population of 32,000. And they have a budget of $56,899,000. Carpinteria has a population of 14,000. And they have a budget of $41,678,000. Bjornson has a population of around 6,000, and their budget is 10 million. Lompoc has a population of 47,800, and their budget is 45,756,000. Santa Barbara has a population of 92,000, and their budget is 184 million. And a good portion of that is fire is 51, police is 51 million, fire is 29 million. Lompoc's 13 million for police, 7 million for fire. Guadalupe has a population of 8,500, and we have a $6.9 million budget. 2.8 goes to police and 1.26 goes to fire is projected. It is, you look at these other cities, they have taxes on motels, transit occupancy taxes. We have very little, zero. You have the businesses that we lose a lot of our money in Santa Maria, shopping, our sales tax. We increase the sales tax to support staying in the black, public safety, recreation, everything else that we need to do. And with a big hole in, first of all, COVID hit, and so that really hurt a lot of every city. It hurt a lot. We got relief money of what, 1.7 million,
1.8.
1.8 million, and I think Santa Maria got 50 million or so. Lompoc got 15 million because of the population. So we're looking at there was looking at a battalion chief or a fire chief. I think we had talked about it the last time, is that if this, it seems to me that that's a practical approach, and not to belittle Chief Cash, because it's a hard stretch between one leg on this side, one on the other. It's really difficult to do. And I think that you look at, for instance, Lompoc, and the shootings in Santa Maria, I think we have a very safe environment. The fires, almost every day you see something going on in the other cities, we have very few. But that's not to say we're not going to have that. So our public safety needs to be elevated to the point where we don't lose people. I mean, employees. It's, you know, the PD for Santa Maria is looking, I don't know how many they said they had, they needed 25 different officers for Santa Maria. I know that we lack officers here. Their budget, Santa Maria's budget is a monster with that, Enos property, that 1 cent sales tax. That's increased, so they got more money than almost the state does, but. I think it's a tough road for us because the money's not there. And if you look at these other communities that have, that are near us, it'd be nice to be able to have other businesses going. The Pasadena development, that's 18 acres of prime general tax money, general revenues and employment. So, and we talked before about, well, cannabis can't do everything. It can't. We have to have all kinds of chips on the table in terms of how we need to move forward. And I think we'll get there. We look at, we recently were notified that we received additional funding for a Royal Theater. And one of the reasons that we received funding for that, for all the things we got, is for community. We received funding for Leroy Park. It's gonna be another 1.7 million for that. Central Park, 4.9 million. You know, the Royal Theater is going to be close to 9 million, and that's been apparently approved on the state level to where that can move forward. Instead of just fixing the building, then we have the second phase, which will create jobs. And one of the reasons that's going to be important because that creates jobs, that creates a flow in the middle of town, as does Pasadena. We are locked in a kind of a stalemate because we're cross-sectioned by Southern Pacific Railroad, Caltrans, which is Highway 1 and 101. No, not 101, 1 and 166. And Caltrans on the Obispo Street light signalization is locked in Caltrans. What happens if they change staff and somebody pulls out the old information and they have to redo that information? So I know that talking with the Smith over there at Pasadena DJ Farms, they're going to pay for it, but they need the information from Caltrans. What do they want them to do? And then that ties into Southern Pacific. That signalization is going to go on there. So we know when you go to Santa Maria at 3 o'clock, you're stuck all the way to Bonita Lateral. You're stuck. You go to Betteravia, the same issue. I personally go to the Pomo to get back to the big boxes that I need to go to. I'm just speaking from the soapbox here because it's a tough situation for us, but I know it's going to get better. I know that we'd like to see that school going. You know that I don't know if they're going to push another bond. Maybe I don't know anything about what they're doing to get that double the cost for that new school. So there's a lot on we're leaning forward. It hurt us with COVID. It hurt us with the DJ Farms not being able to, or Pasadena not being able to go forward. So, okay, any comments from the gentlemen on this side? So, what do you need from us? Approval. Huh? Anyone want to speak? Public. I don't see any.
I just didn't know.
Saw a hand. Recognize that arm.
Just a point of clarity, during your report at the end, you were talking about the expenditure, and you were talking about different buildings, and you said the American Legion. The American Legion doesn't have a building, but we do have a Veterans Memorial Building here in town. So I just wanted to state that for the record.
Yeah. Thank you.
The segue.
All right. Okay, is there a motion to adopt resolution 20?
Well, I had asked for an amendment for that, see if that was possible, the 6,500.
Go ahead.
Is anyone-
No problem with that.
Yeah. Just, would it be possible to put that under ARPA funding? Because it is for
It is a
electronics
one time.
and it's electronic.
Yeah.
Or you
Just so
could
that it
easily
doesn't
do
hit our
that.
general fund.
You could do that.
That's actually a good idea.
That's a great idea.
Because
We do have help,
afterwards,
under ARPA too, there's help for the planning department for some scanning work to be done. So it is similar.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
I think it would be in line with what ARPA funding
Oh.
is available for, and we can use the restriction of those monies, and it's a one-time.
That
So
is
that way
a
it doesn't
great
take-
idea. Honestly, that's a
That master's degree kicking in right there.
why didn't we think of that?
What?
Why didn't we think of that?
Okay. Any requests to speak out there on this item? Hearing none, is there a motion with the
Yeah, I'll motion to approve resolution 2022-59 with the amendment to include the 6,500.
is there a second?
I will second.
Any discussion? Level roll call, please.
Councilmember Reyes,
Aye.
Councilmember Cardenas,
Aye.
Councilmember Foster Junior,
Aye.
Councilmember Robles,
Aye.
Mayor Julian.
All right, all eyes, resolution passes. Thank you. It's a hard, a difficult task to move that around.
Before July 1.
That was
I know.
impressive.
At one point, we waited until August to. You hear when?
Yeah.
Yeah, August. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
staff.
you, Northern.
Thank you, council. Item 15, approval of city policy for Veterans Memorial Building. Mr. Sinco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to try to adjust this so I don't blast the public out. Is that good? Okay. The staff report was detailed for a reason, because I wanted to save some time here presenting, since most of that was background information and important for the public and for the council to be aware of, as to explaining why we are here, asking for you to approve this policy, but unnecessary to go through in great detail. I'll just hit a few of the highlights that the background in the report indicates that the city came into possession of the Veterans Memorial Building. Thank you, Mr. Segovia, for correctly identifying the building on November 22nd, 1994. And on April 21st, 1997, the city entered into a lease agreement with the American Legion Post 371, which had occupied essentially the building since its construction in 1931. The term of the lease was initially 5 years. It had a holdover provision, so when it lapsed, it continued on a month-to-month basis. It was again extended after it had expired in 2007. And then it expired again in April 30th, 2012, at which time it stayed on a month-to-month basis until until February 10th, 2021. On about 30 days prior to that, City Administrator Todd Bodum on January 11th of that year notified the Post 371 that it was terminating the lease that was month-to-month at that point. And he requested that the Post provide the city with a list of dates that the Post and any other veterans groups intended to use the facility. We requested the information 6 months in advance, updated quarterly, so that all the various uses by the veterans could be accommodated. The letter also indicated that the city intended to rent the facility's amenities, including the exterior barbecue area, when it was not being used for veterans activities. And the reason stated was to offset annual cost of maintenance of the building, which is estimated at $30,000 per year. The city is burdened with the cost of maintaining the building, even though under the lease, the post was supposed to handle quite a few of the maintenance items. But obviously it was not able to handle all of them, and so that fell to the city. As the staff report indicates, the city, when there was a quote for $17,000 to fumigate, and that resulted in a review. And then it was realized that there hadn't been any monthly accounting as required by the lease to account for the revenue and expenses incurred by the post for the building. Finally, as I indicated in the staff report, perhaps the last straw, which was not stated in the letter, was the discovery that the Vietnam veterans had been meeting in the city senior center for about 4 or 5 years prior, because it had been difficult for them to meet in the building, the Veterans Memorial Building. And that was not right. All veterans are entitled to use the building equally. So the city notified the post of its intention to terminate the lease, and the post did not agree that that was appropriate. Eventually, in June of 2021, there was a meeting. Mr. Mayor, you were there. Mr. Bowden was there. I was there, along with several members of the post leadership and their attorney, John Dorwin. Discussions were held, opening discussions were held to try to negotiate a memorandum of understanding. The idea was that we would agree to the joint use of the building, and pardon me, there was the staff report has a lot more information for the public that's interested in the background of that, but the bottom line was that the drafts of the MOU that I prepared and circulated to post attorney Mr. Dorwin on several occasions basically came back each time with the same objections. The post did not agree with that the city had the right to rent the barbecue area and or the bar / lounge area that had not previously been rented to the public, but that the city felt was appropriate to rent because of the need for increased revenue and opportunities to provide more funds for the maintenance of the building. So those were the two main issues. Again, I won't go into all the information, but the bottom line is the Post 371 absolutely refused to budge on those two very important points for the city. And that was back in January of this year. Nothing has changed. I've had a lot of time to review and confer with the post attorney about various legal issues that he raised, that he objected to our proposal. I'm comfortable with those legal determinations I made, that the city is on good ground for recommending that we move forward without the cooperation of the American Legion, and just simply assert ownership control of the building as it was intended to back in February of 2021. If you have any questions about any of the stuff in the staff report, there's a lot of information there. There's some detours about like the ABC permit that issue that recently happened. Like I said, there's a lot of information in the staff report that I felt the public needed to know and the council needed to know, so that everyone is aware of what is going on and why the city is taking the action that it is. So at this point, the MOU that was originally drafted was converted by myself into a policy that basically is a city-only policy, but it covers a lot of the same ground, has a lot of the same terms that the previous did. Of course, it was modified appropriately to be a policy. So I want to summarize the highlights for those who haven't read the treatise, my staff report. The veterans will have exclusive use of what's called the lodge room. That's where they met for years. Has displays of various military related items. That will be exclusively used for them. However, due to the fact that it's a room between what we're calling the auditorium or the main hall, and then the bar slash lounge area, passage is required. It may be required in the southern portion of that room, and so that area will not be exclusive use. It has to allow for passage. The city has exclusive use and control of the areas presently used by the fire department and a variety of storage areas. And city is going to assume control of the upper storage area above the main hall kitchen area. Other spaces will be joint use, and that includes the kitchen, the main hall, the bar slash lounge area, and the external barbecue area. There are 2 rooms that are, in addition, there's an office off the lounge area that's used by Post 371. And the city's fine with allowing them to continue it for their sole use administrative purposes, although this is not, we're not granting it as an exclusive right. It's a license to use it. It could be revoked upon reasonable notice. There are 2 spaces that are being rented by third parties, Alcoholics Anonymous and the Rancho de Guadalupe Historical Society. And I want to thank Shirley Boyston, who pointed out that on the map, there were 2 storage rooms that were identified as basically the city would assume ownership and control of those. Shirley pointed out that those actually are part of the rental for the Historical Society. So I modified the policy somewhere. Yeah, I modified the policy, and I'll inform. Well, we'll post a revised version for the benefit of the public, but the policy, it just deletes the reference to the. I'll just say it modifies the agreement appropriately. And also, I corrected the zip code on the first page of the resolution. I typed this, I automatically did my zip code instead of the city's. My apologies for that. So those were the 2 corrections that Ms. Boyson made, and I thank you for that. There's a number of other storage spaces that this policy does not dictate who will use. Staff, city administrator will designate a staff member to negotiate that storage space among the veteran groups and the city, so that everybody has some available space, but that the city will be the final arbiter of that. Veteran groups, we're not recommending any charge for the use of the shared spaces, provided that these events that they are not charged for are limited to members and their guests and not open to the public, or no fees are charged to attend. If it's open to the public, like a fundraiser type event, or fees are charged, then we would consider that like the same as a public rental, and they would have to pay the same fees and apply. And they would still have priority for those uses over the public's use. But for their regular like meetings and their annual events that they do for the members and the guests, they would have priority over that and not be charged for the use of space. It's important to maintain the primary use of the building, for veterans purposes. Both the deeds that Mr. Dorwin asked me to make part of the public record, which we did. Both of them basically say the same thing, that the city owns the building primarily for the use of veterans, although reasonable incidental non-veteran uses are going to be allowed. The purpose of that is so that the city or whoever is receiving revenue from renting the building can pay for the maintenance of the building. That's why it's allowed to be rented. Any event at the building in which alcoholic beverages will be sold or provided without a separate charge, but which for a fee is charged to attend. Those will require a special one-day alcoholic beverage license from ABC, as well as approval from City of Guadalupe Police Department. That's consistent with city policies for the rental of other facilities. Any event at which prepared food is sold requires a caterer. Or if the food is provided and there's a fee to attend, then it requires a caterer. Obviously, if somebody wanted to rent the facility for a private event and they did their own cooking and provided their guests with that, and it's not open to the public, that different rules would apply. Although alcohol would still be subject to city policies, Guadalupe Police Department, even if an alcoholic beverage license is not required. That may be an area that the council wishes to add to this policy or modify it either tonight or in another future meeting. City will pay for all utilities and be responsible for all the maintenance. That's the gist of the policy. I think that covers it. Lastly, as this is basically phase one of the proposal, it's important to move forward with this policy. But we're still going to have, I suspect we're going to have some more resistance from the American Legion in terms of moving forward. I regret to say that I believe that, but based on the communications I received from their attorney, that is what I expect. And so there's going to be some dispute about the personal property that belongs to the Legion. The lease included a list of some of that. In the kitchen area, there's 2 refrigerators, all the pots, pans, silverware, serving equipment. On the auditorium, any tables and chairs not marked Santa Barbara County. Same with the lodge room. There's a piano and some tables and chairs not marked Santa Barbara County, and then the lounge and it says club room, but it's a lounge in the bar. It's a refrigerator, bar, sink, ice machine, and the furnishings contained in the area. Although there's uncertain what the furnishings refer to, but in any case, the city has advised the post through its attorney on numerous occasions that it wants the property removed, or the city will negotiate for the purchase of it. That's either way is fine. And the same with the barbecue equipment. The post had indisputably the post constructed that area and purchased the equipment. And there was a communication from, I think, 2018 that I read some time ago that basically said that the post would rather remove that than let the city use it, and that's fine with the city. The city will replace that equipment. The city likes the idea of having that space available for the public. Or the city will purchase that from the post if that's what they wish to, if that's the route that they want to go. But those are really the 2 choices. The equipment that they're not willing to share with the public either has to be removed so that the city can replace the equipment and start renting the facility and allowing the public to use it, or they can sell it to the city for a fair price. I think that covers it. Are there any questions that you have?
Just a comment. We've been working through this effort to provide the Veterans Building as a home for veterans. That's always been priority, regardless of what era, regardless of anything. If they're veterans, they can use that building in the organized manner. People don't realize what Phil has gone through in terms of research. And I probably could count up 30 pages, double-sided, of research based on trying to move forward with this joint effort to accommodate both the veterans and the community. We the city of Guadalupe only has 2 places in addition to the Veterans Building for any function for the city. We have the auditorium, we have the senior center, which is small, and we have the Veterans Building. And I think that we owe it to the community. First of all, we owe it to the veterans for that building to be able to use as for a meeting place, and then to the community for a place where they can actually congregate to enjoy the facility. But if you don't know that, I know that this is going to be public record, but if you want details, there's really details. I think Phil did an excellent job in providing these details in response to Mr. Derwin and their legal advice. And I know that Shannon and the prior recreation coordinator, chief, myself, Todd met almost 2 years ago at the facility to try to move this forward. And it's come to the point where we need to, to develop this MOU because there's specifics in there that that you didn't mention, but it's documented in terms of what has transpired. So I appreciate your efforts, and also the Mr. Dorrance, because we met with him too, so. And again, you mentioned Shirley saying that it's in the back, it's gonna be part of the record. All of the information that's been submitted to us via email is part of the record, and not only this topic, but the other several topics too. So, I have, first of all, go to the council. Is there anything that we've got, like 20 requests to speak? So, okay.
I want to hear those.
You want to hear? Them? Okay. Just for your information, I have a handful of requests to speak, and each person will have 3 minutes to address the council and the public. And excuse me if you hear beeps, because that's the only way I can deal with this timer. The first person, again, any council comments yet? Okay. All right. So, Mr. Doran, John Doran, you're up.
John Dorwin, counsel for American Legion Post 371. The legal test is the resolution that's being proposed arbitrary, capricious, or an abuse of discretion in adopting the resolution? What the city staff proposes violates my client's historic use and occupancy of the Veterans Memorial based upon the 1931 deed that you have, the 1994 deed, the 1928 case of Gridley Camp 104 versus Board of Supervisors of Butte County, the 1998 case of Veterans of Foreign Wars versus City of El Paso de Robles, that's the duty to repair and maintain the facility for veterans. The 2013 amendments to the Military and Veterans Code, sections 1260 to 1266, 90 years of use and occupancy of the facilities in reliance upon the original terms of the dedication in the 1931 deed. But the city has gone to great lengths to sabotage my client's effort to obtain a type 52 liquor license. And the position the city attorney's taken is we need a lease, or we need some other evidence of a right to occupy the premises. And I submit, we only need one deed and the veterans have 2 deeds. And all we want is what Post 56 has in Santa Maria, which is a lounge open to all veterans. I was mistaken. I've done some more research. On page 6 of your staff report, we can serve our members, we can serve our bona fide guests, we can serve members of other veterans organizations, such as the Vietnam veterans. We can serve reserve officers and active duty personnel, and we can serve anybody who falls within the statutory definition of a veteran under the government code, which includes someone who served during a national emergency. So we don't think it's unreasonable to ask for a type 52 license for the benefit of all veterans, instead of having to go to the ABC every time we want to pour a drink and pay $75 for a daily permit. We think that's unreasonable. We also think, with all due respect, it's unreasonable to have to go to the chief of police whenever we want to serve alcohol in the veterans facility, when it's common practice in the veterans facilities throughout this state.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to have one of my members yield his time.
They'll have all the time you want. You have 3 minutes, and the next person to speak is Mr. Peter Benedict. And
I'll
if
make
they
an
have,
offer of proof that I was not allowed to present my statement completely as counsel for the veterans. Thank
go
you.
ahead, wait a minute. Go ahead and finish. I don't want to go to court on this.
You are presumed to be aware of my client's rights to freely associate amongst themselves under the 1st, 4th, 5th, 14th, and 21st Amendment. The 21st Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, adopted in 1933, gives exclusive jurisdiction for alcohol consumption to the states and territories of the United States, not the cities. It is not a local community issue. It is preempted under state law, and we are entitled to a Type 52 license as a recognized veterans organization. The denial by the city in the staff report of any consideration of a Type 52 Veterans Club license is an abuse of discretion, arbitrary and capricious under state law, and a violation of the preemption that the ABC enjoys under the 21st Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. What could and should have happened is my client should have been able to apply for a license with the zoning clearance that we were provided by the city with, and process a license with public comment, conditions, and input from the public and the city. That process has been denied. That is a denial of due process and equal protection. And my clients, as well as the other affected veterans, have standing to bring an action to correct that, should the council adopt the proposed resolution. Now, the problem with the lounge area is, if we're going to have alcohol in there, we cannot allow the public to also be in there without one of our members being present to provide security. It's an old building. There are a lot of functions that we have which are sensitive and involve security matters that I don't want to get into. But suffice it to say, we do not believe the city can open up the lounge area to the public without a designated representative of the American Legion being present. Likewise, the barbecue, we've had bad experiences with the barbecue. When the public was allowed to use that facility, they wrecked it. We don't want to have to go back and do that over and over again. Council points out the lease is gone. The lease is terminated. What we have are my client's rights under state law, my client's rights under federal law, and my client's rights under the rules and regulations promulgated by the ABC. We also have a situation where under the Military and Veterans Code, if we can't use personal property, we can't use the barbecue area, we believe the city has a double obligation. They have to pay just compensation, the fair market value, however you establish that, of what is being taken for public use and rededicated, open to the public. But the city has an obligation under the cases, the Butte County case and the City of El Paso de Robles case, to provide us with equivalent facilities if it takes over the facility and opens it up to the public. And we would submit that the bar and the barbecue and the personal property fall into that category under the Military and Veterans Code, where you've got to give us a substitute location. And we believe that the use of the term rental for the Veterans Memorial Building is inappropriate. We think you can license spaces, but we don't believe you can rent out spaces, because rent implies a leasehold interest for a definite term. And we think that that is contrary to your deed And we believe you have to provide the Vietnam veterans and any other veterans group with the same accommodations that historically have been provided to the Legion. An office, exclusive meeting areas, and storage and whatever amenities they want. And we're happy to sit down with the Vietnam veterans and anybody else to work out who's gonna get what. And we don't think the city is in a position under the case law to dictate to us who gets what and to play musical chairs with the Veterans Memorial. Every time we sit down and negotiate, we come back with less and less. That is a problem. We think you need to have everybody at the table. And ultimately, if this proceeds to litigation, we believe that not only should the county of Santa Barbara have been noticed under the 1994 deed, but we believe before the resolution was considered, there should have been a notification to the California Council of Druids, who are still out there and who have residuary rights under the 1931 deed. We think that's a defect in the noticing of this resolution, not to notice the people who have interests under the recorded instruments and residuary rights should the council do something to violate the terms of the dedication. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peter Bennett. Go ahead. Mr., you want to speak now, Deke, or do you want to?
No, I just want to ask a question of how many 3-minute sections was that? Does anybody know?
You can have
Thank
20,
you.
you can have
I just
21.
wanted to know.
Okay,
Yeah. With you're obviously in charge, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
of the, but I think in light of the
yes,
importance and the legal issues, it doesn't really do us too good to enforce the 3-minute, unless it starts getting real repetitive. And then you would use your discretion. That's just my.
Well, I'm gonna set this again, and if somebody needs to go on.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Mr. Benedict. Thank you.
Yeah, Peter, I'm the current board president of Vietnam Veterans of America, chapter 982. Oh, thank you. And I want to talk about my dad. My dad was drafted late in World War II. He was a replacement in 101st Infantry with the Yankee Division out of Boston. He was a greenhorn in Europe. And when the Battle of the Bulge happened, he was in the middle of it. And I asked him what was the most common memory he had of World War II. He said blood mixing in with mud. He lost control of his bowels and bladder twice during combat. He came home. His family owned bars. My dad owned a bar. He had a problem with drinking, and he committed suicide when I was 18 years old. Currently, most of us know that 22 veterans commit suicide each week. I would propose that most of those veterans are either drunk or loaded at the time that they kill themselves. I'm a voice in the wilderness here saying, of the hundreds of places in Santa Barbara County that serve alcohol, I don't think a veterans organization should be one of those, because we have a problem with trauma and alcohol and drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. John Velasquez.
Whoa. I yield to our attorney.
You want to come back up, Mr. Doran?
I'm done.
Good.
I made my record.
Not good, but okay. All right, Mr. Marcelino Renate?
No, I'm done.
You're done. Okay. I can't understand, Mr. Amarias, I can understand that one.
Art.
Art,
Thank you, Mayor. I yield to our attorney, Johnson.
Mr. Ronald Stephen Senior,
I yield mine. Terry, I'm not.
Mr. Daniel Adams, second,
I also yield to my authority.
Mr. Deke Segovia,
I know.
you're off the clock, sir.
There is no clock here.
You're right. Michael,
Throw that clock away because we're done. Is this on?
Yes, it is.
City Council, Mr. Mayor, Deke Segovia, I represent Chapter 982, Vietnam Veterans of America. And I think I'd like to talk about, I've been here before, so the City Council knows of the situation we have, but there's a lot of people here that may not know. And so where this starts for me is when the Vietnam veterans first started coming home, we were not allowed into the American Legion ranks. We were not allowed because ours was not a war, as was told to us. It took them some years to kind of open up their doors to the Vietnam veterans. In the meantime, the Vietnam veterans said, you know what, we'll do this ourselves. We created our own organization, Vietnam Veterans of America. And with that, many things happened through the Vietnam Veterans of America. PTSD, one of them was determined through that. There's many things, Agent Orange that we speak of, all these things are happening. But what happened to us then, back in the 60s and 70s, we thought it was all behind us until we started a chapter in Guadalupe in 2007, 2006, 2007, we were formal. Initially, we were meeting at the cultural center with Joe Talogan, but we got too big for that. We moved over to the Simpatia. We got too big for that. So Joe Batiera, who was the commander of Post 371 at that time, invited us to that building. He said, you are veterans, you belong here. And Joe Batiera used to cater to us by making coffee. Well, guess what? The powers to be ousted Joe Batiera. So right after that happened, the new commander said to us, and this happened to us, we came in for a meeting on Saturday, where we always have meetings. The place was all decorated. Tables were covered with white covers. The commander then, John Velasquez, says, oh, you guys can't meet here today. Well, what are you talking? He said, and these are his words. He said, if I can rent this building and make money, I will do that over veterans. That's the attitude from way back. And in 2007, here it is in Guadalupe, that we had to run into that. He had enough baggage. So the question to us was, why do you have to be Vietnam veterans of America? Why can't you be legionnaires? Well, guess what? I am a legionnaire. I'm with Post 66. A lot of our members are with American Legion, VFW, DAV. We're all mixed, just like American Legion are. We're all mixed, but we were not welcomed here. And as we had guest speakers, and in those days, we had 70, 80 people at a meeting. We needed that large hall. And when he told us that, he said, well, you guys can use the bar area. Well, you get 70 or 80 people in that bar area with no windows. A lot of our members are claustrophobic, that we couldn't do it. So we had to leave there because we didn't know enough at the time to approach the city. We didn't know that. So we left and we met at the school. They allowed us to meet there, but we had to pay there. But they allowed us to meet there. And then our chapter imploded in 2012. We relocated to the VFW in Santa Maria until we were welcomed back. And I think John Archuleta, who was one of our officers at the time, and I forget her name. Anyway, they worked out something where we could be invited back to the Guadalupe. This is our home. And we finally got back into Guadalupe at the senior center. And we've been meeting there ever since we were back in town, about 4 years or so. Never being invited to the Veterans Memorial Building. The gentleman spoke up here about the city of Paso Robles, the city of San Ynez, the city, Santa Maria. We are not those cities. We are Guadalupe. The city of Guadalupe, the city council, the communities have always backed the veterans. When we had our first function at the Veterans Memorial Plaza, which was then the city plaza, we served 1,500 people. Our very first event, 1,500 people. And a lot of them had never been to Guadalupe before because of the reputation that Guadalupe had. But there they came. So the community and the city has always been with us. Now, there's been some rumors started since this thing started almost 2 years ago. Rumors were out there about the city being anti-veteran. One of the city historian, Shirley Winston, God bless her. She's a worker. I love her. She wrote an article about how the city was kicking the veterans out of the building, that they were going to be homeless, as she worded it. I called Shirley. I had her number. We talked. I said, Shirley, why did you write that? Why, what were you thinking? She said, this is what I was told. Now, who told her that? I have my guess. Can I prove it? No, I'm not going to ask her. She just said, that's what I was told. So those kind of rumors are hurting the city. They're hurting themselves. The American Legion, it's making an embarrassment of themselves. That, when you talk about that barbecue pit was made by Louis Navarro. And it was on wheels. And Louis Navarro, when his son-in-law passed away, his son-in-law is a decorated, highly decorated veteran. He was charged, the family was charged to use that building for this veteran. And although it's denied, I got it from the source that they were going to charge $500 to use that barbecue pit that Louis Navarro made. It's just unjust. I don't care about all the facts and the figures that we throw out. You know what? We're from here, we're Guadalupe, and we don't need a bar. They weren't making a whole lot of money on the bar, and what happened to their liquor license? If they have to apply to another liquor license, if they didn't have a liquor license, how were they selling liquor in there before? And if they did have a liquor license, what happened to it? Who counts for that? They have they have people that you can report to, but who reports it? And who is the commander? I was part of 371. I started the American Legion Riders out of 371. That was me. But because of the issues dealing with the commander there, I told the guys, you know what? I'm out of here. I have a better invitation to ride with an under ALR in San Luis Obispo, where there's no oppression. Being at this, as the attorney said, that he mentioned us, 371. You know what? You should never do that at this point, because 371 and 982 are not together. We've never been invited. We tried to set up an MOU with them years ago. Guess what? That was turned down also. So all this stuff, the city owns the building. The city wants to open up that building, all of us to use. We do not want 982, we do not want to be under the thumb of 371. It's very upsetting to me because of what we had to go through back then. We have several members in this room right now that were there with me in the beginning. We're still there. And we still have this issue with the American Legion. They want to be all welcoming now. oh, let's get together, we can talk. You know what? No, the talking stuff is over. It's done with. Let's move on. We would love to do functions with the American Legion here in town. But guess what? We get invited to a Atascadero to do functions with them. We get invited to a Royal Grande to do functions with them. We get invited to Santa Maria to do functions with them. We do not get invited by this commander or this post. I used to say it's one person, not even the commander. I used to say it's one person, but now I say no. It's all of 371, because if you stand behind this kind of injustice, then you're with them. You're either one side or the other. You can't sit on the fence. You can't sit on the fence. And the fence belongs to the city anyway. So it's just very disturbing to me when I walk into that building after being treated the way that we have by the commander, to have to go in there and see a life-size cutout of himself up on the balcony looking down at us. You know what? That is, I don't even know how you people in the 371 can deal with personality like that. But you do. No one says anything. You know what? We're veterans too. And we have every right to use that building without being under the thumb of 371. I think I might be done.
I understand.
Any questions?
Tell them what you did when you guys came into the building.
We exist in the building.
No, okay, you wanted to,
Come up to the mic. Oh, sorry.
I'm doing
I
that.
said,
Yes, I did.
Thank you, Pete.
oh, I don't need, I just need a few, okay.
The mic.
Oh, they made me come up. You gotta come up.
Okay. I'm not used to quiet speak, but anyway. We let the group come into the building. We came in after the meeting, we found our stuff removed. Right? They had taken down John's thing, they stuck it back in the office. They took down the American Legion stuff, put it down on the table. They put up their signs, posts or whatever it was, went in there. And we went, this is what they want to do. They stuck up their little, you know, this is our group. This is not the American Legion. So that's just some of the things that happen. Now, if that's what, you know, if that's what you're gonna do when you come in and do something, we've got our stuff that said, you don't remove the other people's stuff and move it and put it on the table. You don't take down all the stuff and move it up and then move your stuff in place. If you want to go ahead and put that, say, you know, come in and say, let's discuss it and do that. That's the proper way to do it. You just don't remove the stuff that the American Legion's already got up and just put it on the table. Or take down John's figure and put it back in the room. You know what? Is that reasonable? I mean, you come in and it said, here we are, we've got the facility, and all of a sudden you're taking the facility apart because you don't like the looks of it. That's it. Thank you.
May I respond?
Please.
This is like getting like kid stuff now. First of all, that's not an American Legion building. That's one thing. It's a city-owned building. And are they the only ones that can decorate the hall? Are they the only ones that can put their stuff up? See, it seems to me like that control that they want is everything there is done. You can't move anything. Well, you know what? If you can have your sign there, then I can have my sign here. And if I, you know, even with that cutout, it was reported as being destroyed at one point, which it never was. That's not my property. I folded up things that were in there. That's not an American Legion room. They have a room over there, but they want this room too. So it's kind of childish to me to think, well, this is mine and you can't move it. I say BS. If I clear it with the city and I tell the city everything that we're doing in there, and if they have an objection, then the city can object and I will listen to the city. But they're the owners of this building. And you can't decorate every room in there and say, oh, it has to stay because we're American Legion. Well, guess what? I'm American Legion also. Several members behind
I'm
you.
not disputing that you're American.
Okay, okay,
That's where it's gonna go.
Right, right.
You know, it goes back and forth.
okay, finish up, Deacon, I'll let him respond in a minute, but, and I have some comments too, so.
Okay.
Thank you. You want to speak, sir, at the last? Feel like I'm in the.
I mean, you want to talk about childish things. They come into the building and then they decide to remove some of the stuff of our, the material that's already there. If you don't want the material there, let's sit down and have a discussion. Don't just remove it, put it on the table, or put it back, and take the signs down, put John's figure down, fold it up, put it away in the office or something. But if you want to talk about childish, that's childish. If something is not, the way you want it, let's sit down and have a discussion. We didn't have a discussion. They just decided that they were going to move the stuff and do it themselves. That's it.
Okay, thank you. By the way, Deke asked me if he could move the sign. Because they were having a meeting there, and I said, turn it around, do what you need to do. So he wasn't, at fault for that, because he did ask me. I wanted to comment, because I'm a Vietnam era person. I belong to the Post, a paid member of 371. And back in the late 60s, early 70s, and people know this here in town, that the population of Guadalupe was about 2,200, 2,300. And 220 individuals served in the military during the Vietnam era, 220 at least. 14 in one street were in Vietnam. This street. People don't need to get treated like that. And Mr. Dorn brought up, why don't we sit and meet? And that's great. But we haven't been able to do that. We haven't been able to do that. This will move it forward to me. This MOU. So any further comments before we bring it back to the council? Staff, any comments?
Mr. Mayor, inspired by Mr. Segovia's correction, it's not an MOU, it's a policy. The MOU is still a possibility to negotiate in the future, but we're ready to move forward and recommend adoption of a city policy. And then we can always enter into an MOU that would be in addition to that and perhaps change some of the policy if it was agreed upon.
Okay. All right. Appreciate the heartfelt discussions and the legalese, Mr. Bowen, thank you. And you, Phil, for doing what you're doing. So back to the council.
I'm sorry, one more thing, speaking to
Okay.
Mr. Dorwin. Mr. Dorwin and I have exchanged numerous emails about the legal issues. I know the cases that he cited. I have a different interpretation. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought this item forward for your consideration. I don't think adopting this is arbitrary and capricious. If we have to litigate, I'm very comfortable, and I wanted to state that for the record, that I'd be prepared to defend the city's action. Thank you.
Okay. 7-item resolution.
I have
Okay,
one
go ahead.
question.
Sure.
There has in the past, there have been a couple of comments made that the locks have been changed. Does that mean that we like?
I don't know the facts. Sorry, I don't know the facts about that. I heard that at one point there was a set of locks that basically the American Legion Post had the only keys. And so I remember being consulted and I said, well, I think we need to change the locks and have control of the building. It's our building. That was after the termination of the lease. And I don't know the details and I don't know if anyone else here does.
So would this policy address that then? Would this policy?
Well, the city has the locks or the keys now.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that, I don't know if I frankly, I don't know if the Post was given copies as a courtesy. I think they were, but the city has copies of and control of the access to the building now. Okay. So I mean, it's not addressed in the policy, but that will remain, that's kind of implied.
Okay. Any more comments from the council, staff? You have something? That,
Sure do, yeah, it just seems that there's like two variable definitions of a veteran. I thought there was just one definition of a veteran. You're shaking your head.
If I may for a moment.
a moment.
California has a definition of a veteran in the government code. California has a definition of veteran in the government code. There are eligibility requirements for being considered a Vietnam veteran. And the American Legion has the most inclusive and the loosest standards. The American Legion allows membership of anyone who was in any conflict up to and including Vietnam, and then they went back and looked at the Cold War and said, people like me who were after Vietnam, anybody who served from 41 on is eligible for American Legion membership. And if you're a relative of an American Legion member, we've got a 1 million person auxiliary. And so the American Legion has about 3 million members nationwide. The Vietnam veterans have about 80,000 members. My understanding is they both have congressional charters. They're both authorized by Congress. They're legitimate veterans organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a good clarification. My father got here in 1928 from the Philippines. And he lived here in California and was part of the labor force that came out here and worked stateside. There was 100,000 Filipinos that came out here. During World War II, if you ever look at the Day of Freedom's speech, Franklin Delano Roosevelt scratched out that Guam and the Philippines were attacked on that same day. The Filipino stateside here in California petitioned the government to actually go back and help fight Japan's occupation in the Philippines. They were granted so, but under a segregated unit. So my second Filipino battalion, and his tombstone's there right there in Guadalupe Cemetery. Would he be considered a veteran?
Mr. Robles, if I can answer that question. I believe so, under the definition of Veterans Association or Veterans Service Organization, which is in the California Military and Veterans Code, section 1260. Those organizations are defined as any association or organization which is composed solely of persons who served honorably in a time of war or in a time of peace, in a campaign or expedition for service in which a medal has been authorized, or in a time of peace where a medal has been authorized, as members of the armed forces of the United States, or who as citizens served out honorably in a time of war, and whose government was allied with the, in another country that was allied with the United States during the war. So under that definition, I believe he would.
So he would be welcome in the post.
Well,
American.
I'm not saying if he would be welcomed in the American Legion or not, or any other particular veterans group.
And
I quoted-
upon his return, when he fought with General MacArthur, they were all granted U.S. citizenship.
If your father fought after 41,
Oh,
he
yeah.
would be eligible for American Legion membership. And I understand your concern. My father fought on Guam, and the Chamorro people were not considered American citizenship at that time, despite the fact that there were many in the Marine Corps who enlisted before the war. So the Filipinos, the Guamanians, the American Samoans, there are problems with who is counted as a citizen even to this day. But the American Legion recognizes all of them as veterans.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you guys for your service. And I have one quick question for, Pete. How many sets of brothers were in Vietnam? From Guadalupe? I've heard some crazy numbers. I'm just,
There was 14 sets of brothers in Guadalupe, and the attorney was incorrect when he said that the only Congressly chartered is Vietnam Veterans of America. We are the only ones that's chartered by Congress. They just don't want to make it corrected.
thank you.
All right, that's, any other comments or? Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2022-60? Okay,
With the correction to
With the
the
correction.
zip code. And with the changes that I mentioned to the policy itself.
Okay. Yo. You all right?
I'll motion to adopt resolution 2022-60 with the changes to the policy that Bill made. I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ramirez,
Aye.
Councilmember Cardenas,
Bye.
Councilmember Costa Junior,
Aye.
Councilmember Robles,
Aye.
Mayor Julian.
Aye, all ayes, resolution passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Phil. I know you put a lot of time into it. I had a friend who had since passed. And he was a Vietnam veteran who died of Agent Orange. And he would come to meetings here in Guadalupe and he stopped coming. And he died about 4 years ago. And I said, how come he stopped coming? He said, because they carry guns. Because they get irritated, they get mad. This is the time to get mad, the time to work forward, to move to where that building is available for all veterans and the community. So thank you all for being here. Next item, future agenda items. Item 16. Announcements, council activity reports.
Actually, I have, I'm looking through my email right now. So, Charter has reached out to me. I made a little splash with them this last open forum, public forum that we had with broadband. And they reached out for us to be able to have some sort of a broadband advisory council. And Jen, you were there, right? When I talked about that, were you here? Maybe, I don't know, but I'm gonna forward it along to people, and of course, like having Garrett there, other people be a part of that, the GBA and whatnot, and see how it goes. I think they're just in the very beginning infancy of what this looks like, because it would be the first kind of advisory board they would have for Spectrum, especially since they have a large majority of customers are here, are Spectrum. And so I'll forward it to Shannon and to Garrett and see about that. And if anybody else wants to be a part of this advisory council, then I can
Good.
also forward that. So,
Lily,
No.
anything reports, the updates?
one other thing, sorry. On July 9th, at 2 o'clock, the ending of the first micro enterprise folks is happening during that time. So I'm not sure what kind of fanfare they're gonna have at that time, but I just wanted to make people aware that at 2 o'clock on that day, we'll be handing out certificates of completion at that time.
Mr. Mayor, I thought we were still on future agenda items. I had a couple to mention, sorry. I you moved too fast for me. Slowing down my old age.
Okay, and that's it for.
Yeah, I would like to,
Yes, please.
okay, well, one of them is the item that's listed in the last of the unscheduled. Establishing a downtown residential permit parking area. That's ready to go. We can move it on the 12th. there is, the commercial cannabis business timeline item will not be going forward on that particular agenda. That will be kicked down the road to a more, relevant time, but there is going to be a fairly large cannabis item coming forward on that date that's not listed here, so I'm perfectly fine putting that downtown parking item. It's not very, shouldn't be very controversial or very long. It's ready to go, and we can put it on the July 12th. Or we, put it on the July 26th, but I'm sure the people would like it sooner rather than later, but just let you know, we're planning on the 12th right now, and then the Pasquini lease, which is also under schedule. I just talked to Shannon, and that's proposed date was July 2022, and she's on track. She wants to move it on for the 26th, correct? And that's all I had. Thank you.
I had a question regarding the next meeting that says commercial cannabis business timeline.
Yes, let me explain that. That originally came from, I think almost 2 months ago, that item was formulated after the original selection, I think on the 12th, not quite 2 months ago. Yeah, 2 months ago. After the meeting on the April 12th, where the first candidate was selected, I had a conversation with our consultant, HDL, and there was some concern about, well, when are they, how long do they have to get this done? And he told me that we have the ability to the council has the ability to pass regulations to supplement what's in the ordinance. And that if we needed to do that, we could do it and we just called it timeline because we were trying to create a regulation to lay out a period of time where they would have to move forward. You couldn't just, I think you might have heard
Sit on it
somebody, you
for
couldn't
5
sit on a
years,
license
nothing.
and maybe try to sell it later. We wanted somebody who had the license and was going to develop it. So we were going to plug some gaps with the regulations. However, we're running into some issues where that's premature. And so that's why that's on there, and it shouldn't be on there. It should be on the unscheduled. Because eventually we'll need to do that, but we're not in a position to do that just yet.
But we are bringing.
Something.
We're doing some house cleaning
Yes, next meeting,
next meeting. on the 12th.
definitely. It's ready to go.
Regarding cannabis,
Yeah,
okay.
and I just wanted to make sure that the other parties were aware of what's going on and whatnot.
As long as we're on it, I just, something came to mind after you pass the budget. Usually the GAN limit will come after that, so I'll check with Lorraine. I'll put it as a placeholder for the 12th. It's just approving the GAN limit, typically our a consent agenda item.
All right, next item. Closed session.
Yeah, I'll motion to adjourn to closed session.
I will second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Got a 5-minute break.
Let's see how we get.